on your monitors. I also repair 2530s if you have any. And they're like, we do have some that we've bought that probably will need to get, of course, restored. Because these monitors, the PVM-2530, are from the late 1980s up into the early 90s if you're lucky. Most of the ones I've seen are from like 87, 88, 89, and 90. And they did go up into the early 90s, but most of them I've not seen from that era.
So they're older PVMs.
Older PVMs, and they had a flaw in their design that Sony pretty much made on them and then got rid of relatively after this kind of. I can't like prove this, but it's been well documented by other people having this issue. I got a load of these things that were in really rough condition, and this problem was prevalent on, I want to say, 3 out of the 4 of them. And it's like an Achilles heel death kill to this.
What is it? What's the problem?
PVM. So the problem is, in these older PVMs, there's this high voltage resistor assembly that is attached to the anode cap, and that'll be on the 2030 and the 14 inches from that area, like the 1340s and even like the 1940s. They have this red insulated box that's attached on the anode cap line between the actual flyback transformer and the cap on the back of the tube. And so again, there's supposed to be this high voltage resistor in there, and I think that's like the early bleed out technology. Now it's fine on all the versions except the 2530. And the reason that is for some unknown reason, Sony decided to incorporate a potentiometer in the center of that block. So on the 2530, you look at it, it looks the same, except it has a translucent knob on the middle of it. And if you turn that, that controls your horizontal static convergence on your screen. And that's the horizontal beam alignment. So if like it's a white beam and you spin that, it'll separate it so it goes red, green, blue. Okay. And then if you spin it back, it'll all line up. And that's how you adjust it. Usually that's on the neck board most of the time, like 90% of the time. But for this unknown reason, it was on this version. And what happens is that thing is all encased in like a poured epoxy plastic solid thing that cannot be disassembled. It's like a solid unit. And the way it's designed is what happens is there's like corrosion after 30 years will build up at the connection points, and it cannot be fixed. And so what it does is it slowly shorts out the image. The image shrinks like this, and then the image just goes away. Yeah. And so that happens. And it took me so much troubleshooting to discover this. And then I found a bunch of forums where people had the issue and just said that was the issue. And then I was like, well, I've kind of confirmed that through my own work because I found 3 out of 4 had them. Sure. And so, I mean, this is a huge explanation on things.
No, but I get it. So they've got this design flaw in a part that is extremely hard to fix.
It was never like, and it was never reproduced beyond, it's like a Sony in-house proprietary item, and they said, all right, we're discontinuing this monitor. We're not making any more of these. You can never find that part anywhere. And so you've got the lack of a so anyway, that's
so what
the
do you
Achilles
do?
heel.
What do you do with
right.
it? How do you
so
get
no,
new parts?
you have a bunch of them. I have 4 in my graveyard, and this job came up, so I was like, well, I have 1 tube combo that I have not checked out yet, because when it got to me, it was the worst one. It said it had a big X on the tube. Somebody had drawn with a Sharpie, and none of the boards on the side lit up, and it just had a bunch of wavy lines on the screen. And so I was like, well, I got to start finding out. So I had boards. I had 3 sets of boards, and I just was able to swap them around to get a set of all working boards onto this monitor, and the screen fires right up. And so it's working. It's just it had this monitor, the 2530, has about 8 circuit boards in it. And of course, 30-year-old, and these are the Elna caps that everybody hates. They were the ones that, but I don't know what people's expectations are for capacitors at 30 years of life anyway. I don't know who could have made them really work that long, but the truth is this monitor itself is just a pain in the ass. Sure. All right, it's got so many boards. It's literally 300 capacitors for like a recap job, because you're like, there's 2 deflection boards. Those have 60 caps on it. You have to change. There's a neck board with 10 caps on it. There's the input board with another 30 caps on it. And then if the buttons on the side don't work, that's a completely different board that's got about 200 caps on it. And then you got dual power supplies, and it's like unreal how much hardware is in there. And then you got an audio amp. So it's one of the more complex things that Sony made. The museums love them because they're stackable, they're cube design.
Right, cube design.
They got the look they want, and they're just impossible to find. But anyway, I was able to put together one good one, but now I've got to sit there and recap the whole thing and then get it ready to send off, hopefully to them, and maybe even, establish some kind of relationship so I can do more work with them, I hope, in the future.